Welcome back to the Against All Odds, the Less Than 1% Chance podcast with your host, Maria Aponte, where we will hear stories of incredible people thriving against all odds. And my hope is that we can all see how life is always happening for us, even when we are the less than 1% chance. Hey, welcome back to Against All Odds, the Less Than 1% Chance podcast with your host, Maria Aponte. I am so excited for this episode. It is going to be powerful and I really feel like very relatable to so many people that deal with some of these things in silence. And I just want to introduce you to a friend of mine. Her name is Tiffany Hynes. I met her through a personal development millionaire mindset conference that we were both attended, and we connected and have been Facebook friends ever since. So she is such an amazing, incredible person just from the conversations that we've had post that conference. So she has actually battled OCD, intrusive thoughts, and postpartum depression and anxiety. And so I want her to give you her story and her background because I know that this is so important because so many women experience this and feel like they're experiencing it on their own, very quiet. Nobody wants to talk about it. And I love that Tiffany is here to be able to shed some light on everything that she's gone through and what she's doing about it, which I think is even better. So hello, welcome. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you.
And so I want to jump in with, what was your first inclinations? Something wasn't right after having your daughter, because I think that a lot of people just don't know that's what they're experiencing and just feel
Right.
so off. So what were your first inclinations?
So I would say the first 2 weeks was pretty dream. I don't think any of the books, I don't think anything anybody ever tells you fully prepares you for it until you give birth to a child and the cluster feeding. Oh my. But I would say the first inclination looking back from now, I had a really hard time eating.
Oh,
So I was hungry, but I didn't want anything. And since I was breastfeeding, I made sure I ate like a lot of oatmeal, stuff that helps with your milk production. And it was like I had to force myself to eat the food. So I would say that was my first inclination.
so interesting. I've heard of so many things, and that has not ever been something, and it's so interesting to hear.
It's the first thing I think of when I look back. When I brought her home, the first 2 weeks were very dreamlike. And then after the first 2 weeks, I couldn't eat.
That's sad.
And it was very difficult. I basically lived off of oatmeal. There is a company called Milky Mama that
Mm-hmm.
makes delicious brownies and other things that help like milk production.
Yeah.
So I basically lived off of those items because feeding my daughter was the most important thing. So that was the first inclination. And then after that, I started having these really weird thoughts go through my head. I've never been I've never been really a violent person. I've never been the type of person who would want to harm anybody. And I remember one day I was changing her diaper and I had her like on her burp cloth. And when I laid her down, the burp cloth went over her face. And naturally, I moved it off of her face. But after I did that, it wasn't like a voice, it was just a thought.
Yeah.
But it was like, what if you don't move the burp cloth? And at that moment, I started to feel like this panic inside
Yeah.
of me because I'm like, what? What do
Like
you mean?
who am I right now? Why would I
Right.
think
What
something
is
like that?
happening? I'm not a monster. I would never hurt my child. So that was, the whole no eating. And then leading up to that. And then I remember very distinctly there was one night that I went to a function and my child had a bewitching hour. That's what I called it. Every night from 5 to 6. It was just nothing would console, nothing would help. Gas drops, doing bicycles, everything. And we were at this family function, and her papa couldn't get her to calm down. Her grandma couldn't get her to calm down. Her Gigi, everybody tried because I was overwhelmed. I didn't sleep very well the night before. Um, so I was like, I'm just going to go home. I feel like that's going to be better. Get home, feed her, get her to bed, and we'll start again tomorrow. And as I'm driving home, I'm like, wow, that was so stressful. How do I make this easier? What can I do to make this situation less stressful if it happens again? Because before I had my daughter, very logical.
Yeah.
Everything had its spot in my brain, like
Yeah.
very compartmentalized in here. And I feel like after you have a kid, there's no compartmentalizing left. And I used to be super type A personality, like this had to be here. And it was just very hard. But, anyways, we're driving home. And as I back into the driveway, I have another thought pop into my head of this plan of what I could do to free myself. And it was like a car, my check engine light came on, and my brain just went into, and that's where I got diagnosed with the OCD intrusive thoughts, because my brain then went into this overdrive of, you don't even deserve to be here. You're a horrible person. You're a horrible mom. Why would you even think of that? And literally the next morning, I called my doctor's office, which I was scared to do because as a mom, you just had a beautiful baby. And now you're getting ready to tell this stranger, this is what's going on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, are they going to take my daughter away from me? Am I going to be locked up in a loony bin? Because I felt like a lunatic. And I didn't know, I didn't know what to do. I hadn't talked to anybody about any of it because I was scared. I was
Yeah.
scared of what people would say, how they would feel about me, if they would feel like I was unreliable, and just
Yeah.
people judging me. I was very scared of the judgment. So I went to the doctor's office that morning because I called them and I said, hey, at this point, my daughter was about 3 months old. And I said, hey, my daughter was born about 3 months ago, and I think I'm having severe postpartum depression issues. And they said, okay, we can get you in. I think I got there. They were like, can you come in 20, 30 minutes?
Oh, wow. That's
And I was like, yeah, sure. So they literally got me in. I actually met with the nurse practitioner. Her name was Jennifer. And I wish she would be the person who would meet any mom ever struggling with this, because the way she met me with acceptance and love and no judgment was absolutely like it laid the foundation to help me move to healing. And I told her what was happening. I told her about the thoughts I'm having. And she said, okay, it's postpartum depression. And it's very normal. Women do go through this all the time. And she said the biggest concern is if plans have been being made in your head. Because she was like, I know it's not you making the
yeah.
plans. She was like, I see you as a mom right now. You're constantly checking on your child, you're making sure she's okay. And I told her, I said, that's what happened last night. And I broke down, and she hugged me. She said, is there anybody we can call? And I called my mom. And while we were waiting for my mom to get there, she said, okay, so we have two options. It was basically, I could either have 2 weeks of supervision, family members watching, making sure I'm good, or I could go 2 weeks in the psych ward.
Oh my
And
gosh.
my first thought when she said the psych ward was, I'm breastfeeding. Would my daughter be able to come and see me? And she said no. So I spoke to my mom. I spoke to my daughter's dad, and he worked during the day. And so my mom was able to come over. and hang out with me during the day. And she would go with me to my therapy appointments because at that point I was doing 2 therapy sessions a week.
Okay.
They started me on sertraline, which before all of this, I was heavily against medication. I was always like, oh, medication is just, it's just big pharma trying to
Yeah.
make money. But honestly, I am so blessed that after 2 weeks, I finally, actually, it was after, I want to say like the first 9 days is when things started feeling a little bit better.
That fog
Um,
was clearing, you feel like?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was still hard. Everything was still hard. And it wasn't like I just woke up one day and everything was great.
Yeah.
There were still moments where I didn't want to do anything besides lay in bed and just sleep. But I made it a point with therapy. The therapists were amazing. Going through the therapy, meeting different psychologists, the psychotherapist that I have now, I've actually been with the same psychotherapist now since 2019.
Wow.
And he's absolutely phenomenal. He has a wife and he has, I think, 3 kids. So he has 2 daughters and a son. And he's very supportive. He's very understanding. And there's no judgment, which is
Yeah.
great because
Yeah.
when you're going into those environments, the fear of judgment is
It's
the
so
part that
huge.
that's what holds most people back
Yeah.
is, oh my goodness, they're going to judge me. And the first psychologist I saw, she was okay. She did help teach me different things to do. She said, find a hobby for yourself. She said, what happens to new moms is they don't know how to do anything other than being a mom.
Yeah. They get
And
consumed.
they do. And that's exactly what happened to me. I remember the first time my daughter slept like 4 hours one night and I woke up, oh my God, is she breathing? And I think a lot of moms, they'll sit there and check on their babies to make sure
Yeah.
they're breathing
They're
because it, yeah, or
the
they'll look at their tummies to make sure their tummies
they're
are going
yep.
up and down. Yep.
And then
And
you
I
and
think
it's
that's,
at and especially at night, I remember, like, looking just, like, to see if it would go up and down, and then I'm like, "Was I just seeing things? Is it for real?"
yeah. And these are things nobody talks about before you
No.
have a kid. And I think it's important that women know, hey, this is a possibility. And it doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It just
Yeah.
means that your body is overloaded with hormones
Yes.
and it doesn't know what to do. And you're in a position where you need help.
Yeah.
And I think a
So,
lot of people, oh,
quick question, with the medication, were you still able to breastfeed?
yes,
Okay. So
yes,
it's
with the
safe for that.
sertraline. Yep.
Okay.
There are some that they
That
don't
you can't.
recommend breastfeeding with because it can be passed down to the baby. But with the sertraline, I guess it's not a concern with that medication. And I was on sertraline for about a year.
Wow, okay.
But after a year, I was basically back to normal. My daughter was growing.
Yeah.
She was about 15 months at that point, walking, saying no over, which seemed to be like her favorite word. No.
Yeah, I
Um,
know the feeling. Um, so what was your experience with your family? Like, how did they take to this situation? Obviously, your mom helped you and
yeah.
whatever, but what was their original reaction, and how did you navigate that?
So with my mom, she came hauling through. She was there. She supported me. She said, I have really bad postpartum depression. And I'm like, that would have been great to know before I had a kid or
Yeah.
as I was getting closer. My dad did not handle it very well. I got a lot of my compartmentalization and type A personality from the way my dad is.
Yeah.
And his response was, you just need to get back to work and get over it.
Yeah.
And I think that's because of the generation he comes from, which is just, it's part of life.
Yeah.
Just move on. But I wasn't in a situation where I could just bury those emotions
And we
down.
shouldn't. It's
Oh,
so crazy. That is what they do in
yeah,
that generation, and they don't talk
yep,
about it, and they just keep pushing it down, and then you wonder why the things that sometimes come out of their mouth, you're like, "What? Is
yep.
that
Why are
even
you
okay?"
exploding? Why are you exploding right now? We're having pizza. And with the therapy I've been in, because I still go to therapy now, I've learned that the more you try and push and hide and push, the more it's going to come out in other parts of your life where
Yes.
you wouldn't expect it. All of a sudden, you're mad because your food took 10 seconds more to heat up than it
Yep.
should have. And all of these little things in life that aren't as impactful as they should be, you get mad at them. And there's no reason for it. And it's because you have all of this unhinged, uncontrolled emotional turmoil
Yes.
inside of you. And I always tell people, if you met me when I was 21, you probably wouldn't have liked me because it was like my way or the highway, had to be done this way. And now now my daughter is almost 7. So
So I met you
obviously,
beforehand,
no,
right?
you
No,
met
no,
me
no,
when I
right
was
after.
right
Yeah.
after. This You met me right after I was diagnosed with the postpartum depression, and actually attending the Tony Robbins event in Orlando.
Mhm.
That was my, okay, maybe this will give me new ways to work through what I'm going through. Because at that point, I wanted to be so rich with knowledge and with different avenues and different ideas. And I just wanted to feed my brain.
Yeah.
I wanted to figure out how and why and where and just what needed to happen to overcome these hurdles and work through them,
Yeah.
because I wanted to be there for my daughter. I wanted to be alive for my daughter.
Yeah.
And I saw this meme. I don't know if it's a meme, but I saw this meme that said a lot of people are alive because of their kids, but will these people live for their kids?
Yeah.
And it hit home because if it wasn't for my daughter, if it wasn't for other stuff in my life that I have been blessed to be a part of,
Yeah. What purpose? There
what,
Yeah.
yeah. So
If
it was just
you find
very
purpose.
impactful.
Yeah,
Yep.
I totally agree. And so how did your daughter's father react?
He was actually extremely supportive. He was very understanding. I remember one night I woke up at 1 a.m. and I just woke up in a terror, bawling. I couldn't breathe. One of those panic wake ups where you're hyperventilating. And he said, "Come here." And he handed me, I like to wear my robes. They're comfortable. Don't judge me.
No judgment.
But he handed me my robe, and at that time we had a pool behind the house. So he took me out back and held my hand, like how he had my arm like through his arm, and he was like holding my hand up, and he walked me around the pool. And he was like, "Look at the stars over there, and do you hear the wind blowing?" And it was
It
it
got
was
you
hard.
present.
It did. And that's something that I've learned through the years of therapy is being
Present.
present.
Yes. My daughter suffers from anxiety, and we're usually on the phone, and I'm like, "Tell me 3 things that you can see
Yep.
right now and describe them to me." And
Yep.
so when she actually calms enough to be able to do it, it snaps her out of it because now
Yep.
she's paying attention to the things that are around her
Yep.
that she has to describe to me. And so it's so interesting. I don't remember who said it, but there's this saying that when we focus on the past, it's depression. When
Mhm.
we're focused on the future, it's anxiety. But when we're focused on the present, the gift that we have.
Yeah.
So we have to focus on the present. That's our gift. And
I feel like
so
that was Buddha.
probably,
I
probably
might be
that's
wrong, but my
it.
brain is it Buddha?
It sounds like something
It
that,
does. It does.
but it's so true because when we're depressed, we're so focused on what our past was or
Right.
how we were or whatever or this
Right.
situation that happened. So we're so focused on that past. And then when we're anxious because we don't know what's to expect in the future.
Yep.
So it's just so important to now, okay, what is in the present? What is right now? What
Yep.
do I feel? Am I cold? Give me descriptions of what's around you. And I tried to
Yep.
do that exercise with my daughter because she gets so like in her head about things and I'm like, "Okay, take a deep breath. I need you to breathe with me." And then from there, when she finally is like able to have her brain cool off a bit
Yeah.
and then tell me what's around her, it just it's such simple
Can
things.
I give another tip?
Yeah.
Get her some warheads.
Warheads.
Yep.
Okay.
Put them in her purse or her car or wherever.
Yeah.
Shocking your system.
Yeah.
It
Like a pattern
you can't.
interrupt.
Yeah, you can't focus on the anxiety that you're currently fighting if you, you're like, especially
Yeah.
the lemon ones. But that's something that has helped me. So I will do like a lemon head, or I will do warheads, or just something to shock my system. And then another thing is have them touch things. It's just to stimulate the other parts of their body. Smell things. What does it smell like?
Yeah.
What do you hear? Can you hear anything? That was one thing my first therapist taught me was like look for three different things, touch three different things, smell something, anything like that.
It's
Because
waking
it
up your
helps,
senses.
yeah, it interrupts the anxious process. For me, I have major depressive disorder. So I have MDD and I have general anxiety disorder. And I also have OCD intrusive thoughts. So with those things, I'm constantly either in the past or in the future or both.
Yeah.
Um, and there's been a few things I've been able to do that helps with that. One of the things that really helped me in the beginning was photography,
Oh, I love that.
which is funny when you think about it, because when you're doing photography, you have to look through a peephole.
Mhm.
I don't use the part on the camera. I actually look through the peephole because it forces you to focus.
Yeah.
And my daughter's grandparents, her dad's parents, got me my first camera for Christmas, her first Christmas as well. And because they were like, okay, what are things that you want to do? And so the support that I had was amazing. And I do know that some individuals, unfortunately, don't have that support.
Yeah.
And I wish that I could like create girl crews that live in every major area or anywhere that, hey, I'm a new mom. This is what I'm going through. I need judgment free help because it is heartbreaking for the women who don't have help. But
Why don't you just create like a Facebook group and start?
I have.
That's awesome.
I have. I do have that. I
Good.
actually started it. I don't even remember when. I think it's called Postpartum Divas.
Okay. I like that.
I wanted it to be a little sassy. And I just wanted it to be something where people know, hey, I'm not alone. I'm not the only person that's going through this. Because you do, you feel like, hey, I'm all alone here and nobody else is going through this. And
And who do I
unfortunately,
even tell?
who do I even talk to? Honestly, if my midwife would have been available for me to go in to see her, I would have seen her because she is phenomenal, but she was not available. when I was going through what I was going through. And the universe led me where I needed to go.
Yeah.
And it was still allowing myself to trust myself.
Yeah.
Because when you're in that mindset, you start questioning everything, and it's, am I making the right decision? Am I doing the wrong thing? And just going with what my intuition was telling me, like, hey, it's going to
Something.
be okay.
Yeah. And I think that's really important to highlight is that when you feel like something's off,
Yeah.
our bodies are so intelligent.
Yeah.
It obviously with a flood of hormones that I'm experiencing the complete opposite because I'm postmenopausal. So I'm experiencing the lack of. And that's hard to navigate. So it's just two different spectrums of
Yep.
what our incredible woman body does. But it's so important to highlight that when you feel like something's off, trust that.
Yeah.
Trust that because I think that so many people second guess themselves or feel like they're not going to be supported. So they stay with it and it manifests in so many different ways. It could be illnesses. I definitely think that me suppressing some emotions from my past just gave my body the fuel to have to deal with cancer and depression and all of that.
Right.
So I really feel like that's when we have dis-ease in the body, it creates disease.
Yep.
And it could be in any kind of form. So I love that you said that I listened to my intuition, my body, that something was off
Yeah.
because so many people let that go and
They
kind of
do.
suppress it. And that's when it becomes just so much harder.
Yeah. It becomes things it shouldn't come to. You know what I mean? Where
Yeah.
people just, and it makes it hard.
So what helped you most during your psychosis episodes?
Meditation, that was a big one. And getting into meditation with the OCD thoughts was actually very hard because imagine you already have these thoughts going through your head. And now you're trying to tell your brain and body, like, hey, let's relax for a little bit. It wasn't until I don't remember who was leading the meditation, but it was actually a friend that I met at the Millionaire Mindset seminar as well. And they said, okay, so you're having a hard time, like, letting go of the thoughts while you're doing it. So he had me sit down crisscross on the floor, on the ground. I think we were outside. We were outside because we were near the hot tub at one of the events. And he said, sit crisscross on the floor and put your hands like gently on your knees, just let it relax. And he had me do 3 ah breaths, which is where you go, which activates your vagus nerve. And he said, now I want you to imagine that you have not a tail, but you have roots growing out of your body and going through the earth and connecting you to the earth
For the core.
and giving my brain something to focus on is what allowed me to be able to meditate because
Yeah.
it's so hard to do. If you've never done it, it is,
Yeah.
especially when you are like you have this constant going on up here, getting that to quiet down is just ugh. But
Yeah.
that literally saved me when it came to meditation. Now I can get myself into a meditative state with 2 ah breaths and some, I do meditation music.
Hmm.
Sometimes I'll do the talk meditation, but I generally prefer the frequencies
Yeah.
because they do have different frequencies that can stimulate deep sleep. It can stimulate relaxing your anxiety. And they have the feel good ones that stimulate the feel good feels in your
Yeah.
head. So that was definitely one of them. The other one I mentioned was photography.
Yeah.
And that one's so ironic because it's forcing you to focus on the present while focusing and taking pictures. So that one's kind of cool. I still do photography now here and there for friends and everything. I also got into so when I was a kid, I fell in love with horses when I was 5.
Okay.
And when my parents got divorced when I was 12, my horse got sold.
Mm.
And that was for a 12-year-old the most heartbreaking event I ever went through. So I swore off horses for many years. And I started getting back into it when I was about 18 or 19. And then I was like, no, I'm just not going to do it. And there's this place in Longwood, Florida that's a nonprofit, and they do equine-assisted psychotherapy and learning,
My God, I love that.
which is amazing. And I started volunteering for them in October of 2021. So I had a period where I was doing really good. So from like 2018 through 20 the end of 2019, and then COVID hit, and then my daughter started having seizures again she had seizures in 2020, which we discovered through therapy a lot of the issues I was having was lack of control. So when I went through my first postpartum depression psychosis, I was losing control. And I was working through that and then discovering it's okay that you can't control everything. And that's where I am now, where I'm not a type A personality anymore.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to release control, you kind of got to just let it go.
Yeah.
And in 2020, she started having seizures. She had a total of 5. And I went right back into this severe psychosis. I had the person I was dating at the time, I told them to hide the knives and hide the gun. But this time it wasn't OCD intrusive thoughts on harm onto others, it was harm onto myself.
Oh, got it.
So, as some would call them, suicidal ideations,
Hmm.
but I wasn't having ideations of wanting to die. It was these intrusive thoughts of suicide.
Yeah.
And sometimes it would come across as like an image, sometimes it would come across as just like a thought. And at that point, I had to find a new psychiatrist. So that was a whole nother ballgame. But I do firmly believe that it is something that once you have it, it can manifest back
Yeah.
again. And if you're not taking care of yourself and if you're pouring from an empty cup, your body's going to go into overdrive again. And 2019, 2020 was such a hard time because of COVID and everybody's staying home and your kids no longer in daycare or school. They're home with you 24/7.
Yeah.
And I always tell people for stay at home moms, the amount of respect that I have for stay at home moms is just immaculate.
Yeah.
Teachers, immaculate. I would not be able to do it.
Yep.
I need to go to work. I need to be able to focus on other things. I need that time for myself.
Yeah.
So it's always amazed me when people talk about being a stay at home mom, and I'm like, how?
Yep.
How?
I feel you. I feel
Yep,
you. I have the best of both worlds. I have something to focus on and I get to stay home.
that's good.
Yeah, I definitely I couldn't be solely just it I feel like there isn't purpose attached to that. Yeah, my kids are great. And then they grow up and where's my purpose in
Yeah.
life? They
And
leave.
that's why a lot of new moms struggle with postpartum depression and things like that because before they had a kid, the purpose
Th-
was having a kid.
Yeah,
And then after they have their child, it's, oh,
I fulfilled that already.
what's my purpose now?
Mhm.
So,
So
one
good.
of the other strategies that has been very helpful is making goals. And they can be simple goals. It can be wake up in the morning and go walk around the backyard with the dog.
Yeah.
It can be putting together any type of manifestation where you take vision board. Thank you.
Yes.
Any type of vision board
Yeah.
and putting things on there that interest you and
Yep.
trying them out. And if you don't like it, you take it off and
Yep.
you try the next thing. Kayaking, fishing, painting. It can be simple things. It can be building a sandcastle out of dirt in your backyard. It's just giving yourself goals that you're excited to try.
Yeah. It gives you
Um,
something to look forward to.
exactly. Making plans with your friends. That's
Yes.
another big thing. When I became obsessed about her, what is it called when they reach their milestones?
Yes.
That that was something I focused on so intently, which looking back, I'm like, I feel like I missed other moments. And then I look at myself and I'm like, you know what? But that's what you had to do to get yourself through the moment.
Yeah. You did your best.
I did my best and I have pictures and videos galore, but I focused on her milestones, like the first time she rolled over, the first time she sat up on her by herself, the first time she pulled herself up.
Yeah.
And I
That's
became
huge.
so excited on her reaching these milestones. So not only was I making goals for myself, I'm sitting here working on the goals for my kid too. But that's what helped. And
Yeah.
it's just figuring out what helps your brain calm down. And ironically, it was focusing on my daughter's growth
Yeah.
and my own.
Yeah.
And now here I am working towards getting my PhD in psychology.
That was my next question. How has this changed your life going forward? And that's huge.
Yeah,
That is,
I have fallen in love with psychology. I think it's beautiful. I think
yeah.
it's something that it can literally save you. And just knowing that you have somebody there who genuinely does care.
Yeah.
They genuinely care. There are some who, don't get me wrong, I saw some therapists that were like, how does that make you feel? Obviously mad. I'm not happy right now. How does that make you feel?
Those aren't very good therapists, but
They're not.
there's
So
amazing ones that,
there are. My psychotherapist is one of them. He is phenomenal. Not only does he do psychotherapy, he does EMDR, he does
oh,
hypnotherapy, he does guided meditations. Like, he is the epitome of my goals, essentially. And he doesn't judge you, which is, I think most women pick up on judgments a lot easier.
yep.
And it's amazing to have a safe place where I know that I'm not being judged.
Yeah.
When I went through my second psychosis, it actually took me from about, I want to say June 2020 until probably June 2022.
Wow.
It was 2 years of just trying to make it. That was my goal every day, was
Yeah.
just make it.
One foot in front of the
Um,
other.
yeah. And finally, by June 2022, I started seeing a new psychiatrist and she got me on the right medications. And I remember my first session with my therapist when that happened. He was like, I feel like I see you coming back.
Yeah.
Because I was telling him how I feel like the green is more green.
Yeah.
That's one of the things where you come out of a depression and you're like, has that always been that green? Or has that flower always been that red? Or
Yeah.
you
Because you
see, or has
saw
that,
so much in fog
right?
and like hazy and dulled down
Yep.
that it just feels, what is this? This is so all new. This is a whole new
Yep.
world.
And once I started getting better, I think I think one of the most beautiful moments of all of this, my daughter and I were driving to the grocery store, and she said, Mommy, you're feeling better, aren't you?
Mm.
And I said, Yeah, baby, I am. And she said, Yay, Mommy, I love you so much, and I'm glad you're feeling better. And
Oh, I got goosebumps.
it, I'm literally driving to Publix with tears just going down my face, smiling. And I'm like, I love you too, baby. And I'm so glad too. And I feel like I saw her for the first time that day.
Yeah,
And it was just ever since then, I live for you, for her. And that's what makes my world go round is her.
that's amazing. I love it. And it's so funny because they pay attention to so much more than what we think that they do.
Yep,
And they are so incredibly intelligent
they are.
and pick up on so many things. And we try to quote unquote shield them,
Yeah, you
and
can't.
you can't. I am
No.
so upfront with my kids, very
Yep.
open. I've always been very open because I feel like that makes me more authentic to them.
Yeah, I agree.
So
100%.
it I feel like you saw her, but you saw that she saw you. And I think that
Yeah,
that's so powerful. So
it
powerful.
was. It was. And
Um
it just,
yeah, it's just amazing. So what like limiting beliefs do you feel like you had to overcome to get to where you are today?
ooh, getting over the self doubt that I had.
Yeah.
When you're in that mindset, you don't feel worthy. I did not feel worthy of anything. I didn't even feel worthy of being a mom. People judging me was definitely, that was what I was really scared of. And yes, I had a friend who completely decided to take out whatever she had been storing in herself out on me and use what I was struggling with against me with other people. And honestly, it was a blessing that she's not in my life anymore because she was doing nothing but using me anyways for her
Yeah.
convenience and what benefited her. So that I think those were a lot of things,
Yeah.
not feeling worthy, this scared of losing people that I love, and I forgot the other thing that I said.
Allowing your light to shine.
That was being my authentic self without fear of judgment.
Yeah.
Because even like through middle school and high school, I always felt different than other people.
Yeah.
And that's because I was never allowing myself to be me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. I love that. So we talked about finding ourselves a hobby.
Yep.
We talked about filling your cup. We
Yes.
talked about meditation, the breathing exercises, and making time for yourself.
Yep.
Like key elements. I
Yes.
want you to take notes. If you are experiencing any form of, I feel like, mental health
Yeah.
situation, those are the points that you need to like make time for yourself. Put your oxygen mask on first because you
Yep.
can't take care of anybody around you without taking care of yourself first. Because then what happens if you're not there? So it is so, so vital. I love that. And then any last thoughts as to what do you want to see coming from your experience?
I just want other people, other women, men actually experience postpartum depression as well. I just want them to know that they're not alone. And it's okay to not be okay. And it's okay to ask for help. No matter how you were raised, asking for help is actually not being weak.
Yeah.
It shows how strong you are as a person that you realize, hey, I'm at my limit and I need help, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And just, it's okay.
I love it. I love it. Oh my gosh, Mama, this was amazing. Thank you so very much for jumping on and having this conversation with me. It's eye-opening, and I really hope that anybody that is experiencing this listens to what you have to say because it's so profound. It's so incredible what we learn about ourselves in the situations, and I think that it gave you purpose. That was life happening for you and not to you. You were
Exactly.
experiencing this really tough thing, and you're on your way to getting your PhD to help other people with that. Like, it's just so powerful.
It led me to my passion.
Yeah, I love it so much. I got goosebumps just like hearing you say that. So, thank you so very much for jumping on today. Listeners, thank you so much for jumping on. I hope you have an amazing day. If you know of anyone that is experiencing these things, please send them this episode. We'll put resources in the show notes if you need, but really, I really want you to be brave enough to take into account if this is something you're experiencing or if someone else is, send them this episode and know that they are not alone. Let them know that they are not alone. Thank you so much. I hope you have a super fantastic rest of your day. Thanks for listening or watching. Peace out, guys. Love your life. Bye bye.